My first time in Oklahoma City, so I'm kind of glad to be here. It's flat, kind of like Minnesota, so kind of reminds me a little bit of home. Since he brought it up, this is R2. I take R2 when I travel, and I take photos of him, and I send them to my wife and share some with the kids. So I'm gonna take a picture of him later. I love this photo. It kind of summarizes the journey of search marketing and just generally two paths, paid and organic, that most people delve into and go one or the other. And it sort of symbolizes how you can go down the same path in search, but yet veer away. And the only thing that really kind of matters when you look at it isn't necessarily the path that you're taking, but the tree that you're trying to grow. Yeah. All right. This is me. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Minnesota Search Engine Marketing Association, and I participate in several other great groups. I'm going to tell a story today and give a lot of references to this one client that I've been working with for a number of years that we do a lot of organic and paid work with. And they're Superior Glove. They're a manufacturer of work gloves. And we'll start prior to 2012, excuse me. And this was their site back then, and it had a lot of technical issues. They did not have a blog. They couldn't put out a lot of content on their own. And they were gearing up to work on the new site that I just showed you. And they put about a year and a half into production with the development company of getting it launched off the ground. And it launched around December 10th of 2012. And we were all so excited about it. And then 2013 went like this. We had our heads stuck in a tree and we couldn't really go anywhere. We had a lot of issues that we didn't anticipate that we had to work through. And because of that, we changed some of our processes at our agency to better merge what we're doing on the paid and the organic side. One of the things that came out of this was we determined that our teams that were working together had to actually be accountable to one each other. Now, we would work on content recommendations and keyword research for organic, and we'd share those with a paid search team who would wait for the client to implement and create the content. And the client got overbooked with what they were working on, so it pushed back the content that they were creating, which pushed back the PPC work, which the organic team kept doing more keyword research and more content recommendations that kept having this backlog. So we sat down with the teams and said, hey, we're gonna have the difficult conversations on how to merge the two and get ourselves ahead, because this year up to date, the 8 months of 2013 didn't go the way we wanted it to. Well, then we started talking about what we have in common between our two channels. We share the same search pages, and we can analyze them and figure out what's going in a given keyword and figure out together how we're going to best tackle it. We have the same keywords that we're competing on, and we can, from a paid side, we can analyze the conversion rates and the traffic volume of them and share those with the organic team and see what they're doing. And then we have the same audiences, which are our customer, and share the data on the types of leads that they're filling out, the types of products that they're really making it in. We can delve into Salesforce and get some real tangible numbers. And then structure ourselves that when we have our meetings, that the PPC team, the SEO team, and then the client side actually have these three things that we're gonna force ourselves to talk about. Now, 2013 was kind of a weird year as well because Hummingbird came out. And that was a major shift in Google's algorithm to change it from a lot of keywords to an actual knowledge graph, entity-based strings. And earlier that year, Google killed off the synonym search, which the year before that, they killed off keyword data in your analytics. So we had this very opaque version of what their new Hummingbird algorithm was like. And if I'm Google, I'm going to kill those off to protect my new secret sauce, so to say, just like Coca-Cola doesn't give out their secret sauce. And from there, we had to make some hard decisions about how we're going to approach Hummingbird and move forward. And then that led to RankBrain in 2015, which is their artificial intelligence, which Rand Fishkin just put out a post in June summarizing the effects of click-through data on organic listings, and he gave an example of their in-house Wi-Fi and the search results for their own brand. If you find that article, it's kind of interesting. Now, the reason I'm talking about these is that on the paid side of thing, AdWords quality score has been 60% to 70% reliant on click-through data for your keywords in your ads forever, and the paid teams have known that. And we've known that, we've optimized for that. And the organic team has never really had to worry about that until artificial intelligence came out and we started to see some trends in how click data matters for search results. So then we could talk about the commonalities that our paid teams experience in testing. So we started analyzing the search results. And in this case, Oklahoma City hotels, we have the organic on the right and the paid on the left. And the organic is kind of interesting because they're basically aggregators. And there are a lot of top 10 lists. And you know from experience that social really plays off of top 10 lists. BuzzFeed just got famous and huge from all their top 10 lists. And we're starting to see that same trend show up in search results. And these are not commercial necessarily intent from the actual advertiser. There's not a single hotel, one location hotel over there. They're aggregate. So this type of content, it's a little bit more informational and helpful than what we've seen in the past. And this is playing into Hummingbird and it's playing into RankBrain. And the paid ads, for instance, they're kind of a little horrible on this. They're trying to mimic it. But the two advertisers here have listed over 100 different hotels. And if you're a searcher, do you want to search through 115 hotels, or do you want maybe the 10 best? And this is one of the trends that we'll see other queries for other hotels in other cities doing better at than this one. But mimicking our organic listings with our paid content has been a strategy that we test out and can help improve conversion rates. So our paid team has a lot of data that, based on all the tests that we do for different ad types. So we put in place a structure to say, okay, if this specific campaign is all about abrasion-resistant gloves, what are some commonalities to that we can test messaging-wise that we can learn from and then provide that data to the organic team? And in this case, heavy wear and tear was highly correlated with improved conversions, improved click-through rates for abrasion resistance. So we took that format and we started working it into the meta descriptions and then the organic content that was on the page. So that way when searchers came and saw it whether it was a paid ad or in an organic listing and they clicked to go through the site, they were still being reinforced with the same messaging that we had already tested to prove that it provided better results than our other messaging. The next thing we started to do is we started to test call to actions to definitively find one call to action that we knew outperformed the rest. And we did this in a different testing format than the heavy wear and tear, for instance. This is specifically a call to action test where we tested 2 to 4 different calls to action to see which one converted best. And then what we took with the results, which request your free glove sample in this case was very powerful for them. We took that, we also wove that into the meta descriptions of all of our pages. And then we carry that through on the content so that when visitors see that in the listings and then they click to go to the page, they're reinforced with that and that's the action that they're looking to take. And testing this has proved to be really well for organic. Organic content, it tends to be kind of hard to test. There's a lot of technical limitations that go into a lot of platforms. And one of the simplest ways we've been able to use paid search to test organic content is take an ad group of all of your keywords that you're going to send to a landing page and start split testing it with the landing page and your organic content. Now, organic pages tend to be these hodgepodge of a lot of different mediums and content that can kind of interfere with conversion. So they don't always perform best from a strict landing page perspective. But by split testing our paid ads for the same keywords, we get a better idea of how our conversion rates work for those keywords, both against our paid landing pages, but also in our organic traffic. So that we take that data, we provide that back to the organic team and say, hey, based on abrasion resistance or cut resistance, this page works better than this one, and you should continue that messaging, and maybe we should test some more landing pages. This is something that AdWords came out with demographic data last year. And they quietly snuck it in to some fanfare, but not a lot. So you could go into your AdWords account, into each ad group, and you could add your keyword data, or you had your keyword data that you could add your ages and your genders. But you had to specifically add them, and then your account would start accruing demographic data. And they did this to compete with Facebook, because Facebook's been just kind of killing them on the social demographic side of things. And their new platform that's out now, their new interface, combines all this data in a more manageable, and it throws in your household income and your parental status. Now, household income targeting was, I think, reserved for the display network, and parental status also for the display network until the new interface. Now, today you can target age, gender, and household income for your paid ads, for your paid search, but parental status is still not yet available. It's only on the display network. But since it's in the new UI, I believe it's going to come out there in shortly. Now, you have demographic data in your analytics. If you use Google Analytics, you have demographic data in there. It's kind of built in, you just need to enable it. The only thing you don't have in there is your impression volume, which basically you can figure out how effective and how wide of an audience you have for male versus female and different ages. So one of the reasons that we gravitate back to this is when we build personas and we start talking to clients about how we're going to build out for a specific audience. We go into our AdWords data and we figure out how ages, genders, and things like that work based on impression share. So for age, we see here that 35 to 65 is our prime audience. This is a modern furniture e-commerce site. And this fits very well in what their customer base looks like. Now, the 65 and over, we'll see a high interest. You'll see a lot of impressions for that, but a much lower conversion value out of them. These are people that are generally looking to retire or are retired and do not have the disposable income necessarily as people younger than that. And we also see the same thing on the lower end. This gives us a clue into bid adjustments and structuring the campaigns and our copy based on age. Same client, modern furniture, gender. They're pretty similar, actually. The males tend to be more interested, and we see a little bit more impression volume out of that, a little bit lower conversion rate. It's about 0.5%. But across the board, it's pretty similar. But I've worked with certain other audiences where one demographic will skew much more, which gives us an indication of where we're going to put our resources into optimizing. Household income in AdWords is dependent on user's location. Google found a bunch of census data, I believe, and they tied it back to zip code based on average income for those areas. So in AdWords, you have your bid modifiers you can set for your different household incomes, which is just a shortcut for Google to map that back to certain zip codes that they've already identified as higher. This modern furniture client, the top 10% performs very well for them. And the unknown, for instance, for some reason, people just generally don't want to give out their information, still performs pretty well. But one of the great things about this top 10% is that for this particular client, we know we can spend more to get more impression share for that audience because it performs very, very well. Parental status. This is that same high-end furniture client, and the conversion value for parents and non-parents and unknowns is very similar. That's the red bar, which means that all of these audiences are very similar, and we're not going to necessarily lose money by advertising to them. The interesting thing here is that the non-parents, their interest in this client's product are so much more, which completely makes sense to me. This client has a lot of delicate, breakable glass furniture on their site. And I've got kids, and my kids would tear that furniture apart and break it. And as a parent, this is not, for me, an ideal buy. One of the best things to quietly come into AdWords. All right, so I'm a keyword geek. I love keywords. You're probably never going to meet anybody who loves keywords as much as I do. And Google, when they switched to not provide it a few years ago and stopped giving us that organic keyword data, took a little chunk out of my heart. It was really good data that just kind of went away. It's still there. We're still getting the searches, you just don't have the data. Now, Google Search Console will provide you 90 days worth of data, which is great, 90 days. But then after that, you don't get past that. Even in your analytics, when you import the data, you still only get 90 days, and that sucks. That's your data, that's your history, We'd like to save that. Now, last year, I believe, Google came out with the ability to hook up your Google Search Console with your AdWords account. And what that does is that starts pulling in from that time forward all of your organic search queries out of Search Console. And that data stays in there longer than 90 days, which means you're not scrambling trying to save that data and find it again. And it starts from today. If you connect the accounts, it starts from today. So this data and this client goes back a year and a half, I believe. So we still have all of our paid data, which is in the blue. We have the green data from Search Console that got imported in the green. And then we have the orange, which is the combined data of how they work together. And it provides us a really great, easy to download set of keywords with clicks and volume that we can then analyze. There's two different ways to look at these reports. One, you can aggregate it all. That's the red, all combined. And it'll tell you what you're getting out of it in aggregate. Or you can split it down by type, which I really love to do for identifying trends. If you're showing the ad only, it means that you might not have organic content available. If you're showing paid ads only, you might not have, or excuse me, if you're showing only organic content, you might not have paid keywords backing up your organic data. But the combined gets really interesting because this is how this works together. This same keyword, all the queries during this time period, how many did we capture, how many impressions were total, we can figure out our query capture rate, which means that for this particular client, they're capturing right around 16% of all clicks for all queries for this specific keyword. And if organic is performing poorly for this keyword than other keywords, that gives us a clue to delve in and figure out what's going on there. This has been speculated for a while, and the search engines came out and said that if you have a paid ad alongside an organic listing, your traffic and your clicks will double. So for this particular client, I went and downloaded 1 month's worth of AdWords data, search term data, and I broke it down by the different channels. Organic, we got, for that time period, when the organic listing only showed up, we got a 3.1% click-through rate on all impressions. The PPC ad only was 5.4. Combined, we had 16.5. Well, the 3.1 and 5.4 don't equal 16.5. So looking at the combined, when we had an ad showing on the same page as an organic listing, we got a 5% higher boost in click-through rate for the organic and a 3.1% higher boost in click-through rate for the paid. If you have some really key terms that you want to hone in on, this is a great way of making sure that you're capturing as much as you can out of that because you get the multiplier effect. Very great. I said I'm really big into keywords, so geek out with me for a second. This is a root term report that we put together for clients, where you go into your AdWords and you download all your search terms for a specific keyword set for a specific time. And then you aggregate them based on every single root word you can find. So for instance, the root word of cut is in almost every single one of these keywords, and we have a combined click volume for that word. We have a combined impression volume, meaning how many impressions did this actual word generate out of the whole query set. We have a cost, because it's AdWords data. We have conversion value. We have total number of conversions. And then the last column is repetition count, meaning how many times did this word show up in the keyword set that we pulled the data from. And this gives us clues into how popular the keywords and how often did it match in multiple variations. Now we're not talking about one specific keyword, cut resistant gloves. We're talking about cut in all the different variations so that we can build a better theme for our site. Then we take and we layer that with a heat map to figure out how we're doing on a conversion value based on where we're currently at, what our average is for this set versus below or above that. The 5, for instance, for the root word 5, their level, fifth level cut resistant gloves is the intent behind that. Our conversion rates and our traffic volume and our cost per click are all incredibly positive across the board for Whereas we go to cut level 4, down there is not as much, cut level 3 is not as much. This client in particular is very strong in cut level 5 gloves. So it makes sense that they're known for it, they have a better offering, and we get better conversion rates for it. So by finding your root terms, you can then take and put together a list of all the variations. And you can do lots of things with this list. You can identify how the priority versions. So we take and we have our root terms, and then we match them up to the most popular version of that term, so that we're not inundating whoever we're going to give this data to with too many. We're just giving them a nice sample so that they know what the most popular is. And then we take that and we rank them by the impact that it makes, either conversions or volume. So for instance, you can take this data, you can give it to a copywriter so that they can work into maybe a blog post that they're writing. You can give it to your SEO team so that they don't keyword stuff the same term over and over and over again. And we've seen that time and time again. Content branding, you use it for. If you're going to create a guide to cut-resistant gloves, you want to call it cut-resistant glove guide. That's your most popular term. You're going to get more links that way. You're going to get better branding that way. And your results, therefore, because you branded it right, will turn out better. And you can vary up your anchor text when you're building links. For SEOs, a repetitive cut-resistant glove anchor text isn't going to help you so much over and over again. Google's going to be able to see that pattern and start devaluing those links. Paid search. Take these terms, turn them into new keywords, broad matches to increase your query share for the different types. Ad copy testing. And then my favorite one, having variations for shorter words when you're creating ads. So for instance, back when we had standard text ads, we had a 25-character headline, 35-character descriptions. And we had to make decisions on how many characters we put in there to still try to get the same message across. Now, the word resistant is about 9 characters, I think. The word proof is 5. I could say 4 characters by having a shorter term that means the exact same thing. This is same client. The left was how they saw their site when we started working with them, their old site, their product line. And after doing keyword research, breaking it down by our root words, we were able to identify very many different patterns across their different product types. Product types they didn't even know they had. That they had, they just didn't know they had. That people were searching for. We took their 13 categories and over the last couple of years built it out to 30 for them with sub-themes underneath that matching query strings. So for instance, the abrasion-resistant gloves. They did not know that they sold abrasion-resistant gloves. They didn't know people were searching for it. But because we were running keywords for cut-resistant gloves, and we saw variations show up in there, abrasion cut-resistant gloves, and abrasion work gloves, and other variations, we were able to identify that there's enough pattern to explore this further, which then you throw into AdWords, you create your BMM versions, and expand your reach a little bit more to fill out the whole scope of what you're trying to accomplish there, and then you query mine that to create your content, your sub-themes. I bring this up because, as I said earlier, 2013 we had our heads stuck in a tree. We weren't getting the content created well enough, fast enough. And I really love showing this client because this is boring content. Categories for products is boring. Like, the client doesn't like it. They want fancy infographics and things like that. But they can't debate the results that this gets compared to what they're currently doing, chasing the viral content. I love to bring this up because this is something through just good old-fashioned hard work, detailed, depth, keyword research, anybody can do. And it's business intelligence along the way. The last thing I want to leave you with is combining PPC to promote content. And I did this search a couple months ago, hip replacement, and there was 3 ads there. One was a lawyer, which lawyers are basically going to compete in paid search because they really love to sue people, and they get a lot of money doing it. The second one is very helpful ad. 6 things you should know about hip replacement. That's pretty interesting. And the next one is just surgery, kind of a straight commercial-based intent. Now, if I'm looking to have my hip replaced, the doctor says that I should probably have my hip replaced. So I go do hip replacement search and figure it out. I'm going to click on the facts. It's an early in the funnel keyword or a piece of content so I can learn more about this. And then therefore, this advertiser who's promoting their free, informational, helpful content is going to get more of the clicks and more of the queries. Then they can remarket to me and do other things. I bring this up because paid search historically has been all about commercial intent and driving leads and sales. And as we've seen with organic search and Hummingbird and mirroring content to be helpful and useful to compete on that level through just good old-fashioned content marketing, we're starting to see that drift into paid search. How many of you, let me ask a question, how many of you do Facebook ads to promote content? How many of you that just raised your hand use paid search to do that same thing? A couple, good. But not as many, not nearly as many. And this, you know, with Facebook ads, they're kind of needy. They take some time. Your audience will get familiar with it. They'll run out. You got to change your messaging, change your content. This is more of an evergreen strategy. So this work glove client, they created a cut-resistant infographic, and it was kind of viral for them for sort of a boring industry. And we decided one day that we were going to take that blog article that they had it on, and we were going to promote it through paid search. And then we were going to compare the results against their commercial query-based intent keywords that were sending people to an optimized landing page, and then compare the two. What we found was that for the blog article, a helpful infographic had a slightly different set of keywords that were very similar, but the cost per click was 23 cents on average, instead of $2.30 for a commercial-based intent. Our conversion rates were not as good, but by volume and interest, we were able to generate leads at a much more cost-effective level for them by promoting a free piece of content. After that, we took it out of the blog and we gave it a dedicated landing page with a button on there with a request a free sample. And that's the custom LP you see there. And from there, we were able to drop the cost per conversion down even further by streamlining the experience. And this is an infographic. It's just an infographic. But it resonated well with their audience, and therefore, we ran with it. And this thing is still going today. The last time I looked, it still had over a 10% conversion value out of cost. And the conversion value out of cost is based on how we're tracking the value, not necessarily the actual value. But comparatively, the commercial landing page is still at a 1-to-1 for what we're tracking, which is completely viable to the client. They're fine with those numbers. But supplementing their leads at a more cost-effective makes their whole tree grow in a way that their plain infographic didn't do originally. So I'll leave you with my takeaways. If you're merging PPC and organic, make sure you're being accountable in your collaboration. It can go completely off the rails if you don't. Leverage your PPC initiatives to test your organic content, to test your messaging, test your call to actions. Find out exactly what's going on with the content in a very data-informative way. Hook up your Search Console with Google AdWords. The keyword data that you import in there is going to be there until Google figures out that they don't want to do that anymore. But the sooner you do it, the better. Analyze your root word variations. This is one of the keys to building out your authoritative theme. And since the last time, usually when I do a synonym search, trying to find keyword variations, the synonyms that thesaurus.com shows me back are not even remotely related to the query synonyms that people are searching for. So identify those. And then don't be afraid to work on boring content themes. Build out your keyword list, start brainstorming content ideas, even if it's just categories. And then use paid search for content promotion. It's going to be a really good win for PPC moving forward. That's all I got. Thank you.